Hello, everybody. Paper 7 Literatures of India, session number 33. Session topic Key Writers on English in India, an aspect of language debate. The present session deals with two key writers, Aijaz Ahmed and Gauri Vishwanathan, whose contribution towards various aspects of English in India is immense and with whom Rajeshwari Sundarajan loved exchanging knowledge. Aijaz Ahmed. Born in 1932 in the state of Uttar Pradesh in India, Ahmed and his parents migrated to Pakistan following partition, and he is a Marxist philosopher, literary theorist, and philosophical commentator. After his education, he worked in various universities in US and Canada. Before joining UC Irvine in 2017, he was professorial fellow at the Center of Contemporary Studies, Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, New Delhi, and was visiting professor of political science at York University, Toronto. He also works as an editorial consultant with the Indian news magazine Frontline and as a senior news analyst for the Indian website Newslink. Aijaz Ahmed and narrativizing Indian literary cultures. As studied by Girija Suri as to how Aijaz Ahmed narrativizes Indian literary cultures is based on one of Ahmed's highly influential essay, Indian Literature Notes Towards the Definition of a Category. It was first published as a chapter in his seminal book, In Theory, Classes, Nations, Literatures, published in the year 1992. Many of the essays published in this book, notably Jameson's Rhetoric of Otherness and the National Allegory, Salman Rushdie's Shame, Postmodern Migrancy and the Representation of Women, and Orientalism and After, Ambivalence and Metropolitan Location in the work of Edward Said, were first published in various reputed journals. By Ahmed's own admission, the chapter Indian Literature too has its basis in seminar presentations held at Delhi University and Jawaharlal Nehru University in the year 1988. Ahmed's essay is concerned with several issues of importance pertaining to the unwieldy category of Indian literature. Ahmed discusses theoretical and institutional problems encountered while such as Indian literature. The essay is written from a purely Marxist perspective, as it is typical of his other writings too, constantly making a case for reading texts in their materiality and resisting their appropriation by dominant and hegemonic discourses. Ahmed ultimately posits several methodologies that could be effectively followed to define the scope and characteristics of what could be authentically termed as Indian literature. Ahmad also discusses at quite some length the hegemonic place of English language in India and the role played by colonialism in consolidating its privileged position in the country. His strategy is to juxtapose the views of people like Gandhi, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, Raja Ram Mohan Rai, and Vivekananda to argue that introduction of English didn't elicit any straightforward rejection from such reformers and nationalists. In this discussion, he weaves in his advocacy of comparative literature as a discipline as well as a radical overhauling of English departments in the Indian universities. For Ahmed, the problem is not that English was inserted into India in tandem with colonialism, but that it is among all Indian languages the most remote in its structure and ambience from all the other Indian languages. He rightly preposes English as one of the Indian languages and argues that post-colonial theory has wrongly placed too much emphasis on English as a means of religious conversion of the natives into Christianity. For Ahmed, English is carrier of modernity. For Ahmed, English is carrier of modernity and technology, which, however, is responsible for the creation of a class of intelligentsia actually engaged in the translation of literary texts from English language to other Indian languages and vice versa. Given the fact that most of the translation projects involve English and at least one Indian language, rather than translation between other Indian languages, English becomes the language in which Indianness gets articulated. Such translations tend to get canonized, leading one to believe in a highly selective range of Indian literature, one that significantly leaves out the relatively untranslatable, that is, the oral and performative cultures of India. What is therefore required is not to treat English as superior language owing to its colonial roots and hegemonic influence, but rather to see it as par with Indian languages through a conscious process of what Makarand Paranjape calls vernacularization. The wisdom lies in using English to our own ends by facilitating a dialogue between other Indian languages through translations between them. It would include articulating themes which are closer to Indian realities, writing in English which reflects our cultural specificity, famous example being Raja Rao's Kantapura or even Amitabh Ghosh's novels in the present scene. And most importantly, engaging with Indian literary critical traditions in meaningful ways rather than writing works which are mere imitations of the West. Insofar as Ahmed's essay propels the reader to think deeply, even change one's position vis-a-vis his own essay, and provide logical standpoints from where one could argue and analyze contemporary Indian literary scene. This essay does remain a successful and for all its resistance to definition of a category, a field defining one. Let us now look into the phenomenal work by Gauri Vishwanathan. Gauri Vishwanathan was born on November 5, 1950 in Calcutta, India, and came to the United States in 1982. Gauri Vishwanathan is class of 1933 professor in the humanities at Columbia University. She has published widely on education, religion and culture, 19th century British and colonial cultural studies, and the history of modern disciplines. She is the author of Marks of Conquest, Literary Study and British Rule in India, published in the year 1989, and Outside the Fold, Conversion, Modernity and Belief, published in the year 1998, which won the Harry Levin Prize awarded by the American Comparative Literature Association, the James Russell Nobel Prize awarded by the Modern Language Association, and Ananda K. Kumaraswamy Prize awarded by the Association of Asian Studies. Her phenomenal work in the post-colonial studies, Mask of Conquest, Literary Study and British Rule in India. Now we shall see a brief account of the book as observed by Sundar Wallamudi. Gauri Vishwanathan provides a fascinating account of the ideological motivations behind the introduction of English literary education in British India. She studies the shifts in the curriculum and relates such developments to debates over the objectives of English education both among the British administrators as well as between missionaries and colonial officials. Gauri Vishwanathan argues that British administrators introduced English literary study in India in the early 19th century to improve the moral knowledge of Indians. Since Britain professed a policy of religious neutrality, Christian teachings could not be used in India, unlike the situation in Britain. In order to resolve this dilemma, colonial officials prescribed English literature infused with Christian imagery for government schools. Initially, Indians studied English literature using poetical devices such as rhyme, alliteration, and reduplication. However, missionaries decried such secular practices and insisted upon a more religious reading of English literature. As a result, between 1830s and the mid 1850s, government schools in India used English literature to explain Christian teachings and emphasize the higher levels of historical progress and moral standards of English society. By the end of the 1850s, however, British administrators again changed their stance and advocated a secular reading of English literature to encourage commercial and trade literacy. This reversal of stance occurred as British officials realized that a religious reading of English literature didn't provide Indians with the proper knowledge to join the colonial administrative services. Besides, after the 1857 Indian Revolt against foreign rule, British officials didn't wish to adopt policies that might ignite fears of conversion among Hindus and Muslims. Vishwanathan gives a detailed account of the various debates that influenced the introduction of English literary study in India. While she minutely examines the stances of utilitarian, Anglicist, and missionaries, the absence of chronological benchmarks at regular intervals prevents the reader from fully understanding the shifts in education policies in British India emerging from such debates. However, her work changes our way of studying British education policies in India. Previously, scholars merely studied the transformative effects of British education to understand the historical function of educational policies. Vishwanathan ably proves that it is necessary to examine the discourse and the context of the formulation of educational policies to better understand educational history. Thank you.